Stop living above your means, which means you spend more than you earn. Stop living even within your means, again, which means you spend everything that you earn. And live below your means and invest the rest. Let me say that again. Stop living above your means, which means you're spending more than you earn. Stop living within your means, which means you're spending everything you earn. And live below your means and invest the rest.
The Tall Boy Experience.
Hi, this is Dr. George Fraser. Would you like the experience that Tall Boy is about to give you? Well, stay tuned. I'm 74 years old, and 25 years ago I wrote a book called Success Runs in Our Race, The Complete Guide to Effective Networking in the African American Community. It is a modern day classic. It is required reading in 57 historically black colleges. If you have not read that book, you probably should read that book. But it was in that book that started the networking conversation, or the relationship capital conversation in Black America, and ultimately started the networking movement. I'm considered to be sort of the guru of networking in Black America, and absolutely I believe in, have been teaching, preaching, and evangelizing and writing about that subject matter for a quarter of a century. And there is intellectual capital, there's human capital, and there's relationship capital. Let me say that a different way. 15% of your success in life will be based on your skills, but 85% of your success will be based on your interpersonal and people skills that ultimately result in the relationship capital that you bring to the table of life to do whatever work that God has assigned you to do, because it takes teamwork to make the dream work. So as you grow older and wiser, you will understand that your EQ, your emotional intelligence, which is fundamentally your ability to build relationship capital, will be more important than your IQ. Your EQ will be more important than your IQ. There are several iterations that I use to help our people understand why wealth is important. Wealth is important because your wealth will determine where you live. Where you live will determine where your children go to school. Where your children go to school will determine the quality of your children's higher education, and that will determine your children's lifelong earnings. And your children's lifelong earnings will determine where your children live. And where your children live will determine where your grandchildren go to school. And where your grandchildren go to school will determine the quality of your grandchildren's higher education, and that will determine their lifelong earnings. So there's a cycle of poverty here that we have to break in understanding why wealth is important. Why is wealth important? Because in a market-based economy, in a democratic capitalist society, the only color that really matters in this country is green. Put $1 billion next to your name and see how much racism matters. Now, it will matter to some degree, but to a much lesser degree. So, wealth is important, and ownership is important. The 4 pillars for the intergenerational transfer of wealth, which is in Proverbs 13:22, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And unless we understand that as a black people, because we are a consumption class of people, white people are a merchant class, they make stuff, we buy stuff. Unless we come to grips with the 4 pillars for the intergenerational transfer of wealth, and not be the first generation of African in America to raise another generation that will not do better than them, baby boomers in this time, we will head into a second slavery. So we really need to get our act together. The first pillar is the proper management of accumulated wealth. The second pillar is real estate. The third pillar is business ownership. And the fourth pillar is proper insurance, because 60% of all wealth is transferred through tactical and strategic placement of proper insurance. And we don't have a clue about proper insurance. We don't have a clue about the proper management of accumulated wealth. This is why an athlete today can earn $100 million in their career, and within 5 years of retirement, they're either broke or in bankruptcy. That is the improper management of accumulated wealth. We don't understand the power and importance of real estate. We have been here since the Mayflower, and we own the fewest number of homes per capita of any cultural group in this country. We must fix that. And the need for business ownership, because you can't transfer a job to your children, just as you can't transfer a rent payment to your children. You can transfer a home, but you can't transfer a rent payment, or you shouldn't transfer a rent payment. And we want to be able to transfer businesses and develop equity and ownership. So those are the four pillars, and this is the kind of thing that I've joined in this fight with John Hope Bryant, in bringing our people to a level of financial education and financial literacy so that we are not headed into a second slavery, according to all the statistics and all the predictions. Robert Smith, who just paid off the student loans for 400 Morehouse grads, did one of the most innovative, one of the most important gifting of a group of black people, I think, in the history of let's call it charity. Not only did he save them from a debt that could be as large as paying off a house with long-term interest, the aggregate amount of money that he saved those 400 young people was not only the $40 million that it took him to write the check to pay off those student loans, but the aggregated interest that it would have cost them, that it would have increased that debt over the time in which they paid it back from 40 million to 120 million, or 3 times what that debt was. I think that was groundbreaking. I think he has set the standards by which future gifting will be judged. I think he has changed 400 lives in a very significant way. I hope these young people will pay it forward. I hope they will take their savings and manage that money in such a way that it gives them a head start on financial growth and financial wellness long into their lives. And my hat goes off to him. Kudos to Robert Smith for such an incredible idea and an incredible way of gifting. The one tip I would like to leave as it relates to financial education and financial literacy is stop living above your means, which means you spend more than you earn. Stop living even within your means, again, which means you spend everything that you earn. And live below your means and invest the rest. Let me say that again. Stop living above your means, which means you're spending more than you earn. Stop living within your means, which means you're spending everything you earn. And live below your means and invest the rest, right? If you cannot pay yourself first, off the top, save monthly at least 10 to 15% of your earnings that goes back to you, that you can invest for equity and ownership. You are living above your means. You need to ratchet down your spending, right? And make sure that you can tithe to you first so that you can have seeds for a greater harvest in the future. I require that you read Success Runs in Our Race, The Complete Guide to Effective Networking in the African American Community. by Dr. George Fraser, or an interesting book to read going into the 21st century is my book, Race for Success, The 10 Best Business Opportunities for Blacks in America. The way to make a profit and to make a difference, the way to do well while doing good. And I recommend that you join us at the Power Networking Conference, June 26th through the 29th in Houston, Texas. My featured guest at the Power Networking Conference is Daymond John from Shark Tank. And we talk about two subjects at the Power Networking Conference: business and money. Business and money, because that's the only two things we ought to be talking about as black people in the 21st century.
Did you like the video? That's right. Did you like it? Hit that like button. Subscribe.
Think big, think tall.
And share it.
Think tall boy.
Yay!
Tall boy.